Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the last part of Chapter 4. In the previous lecture, we discussed the general concept of elasticity and started exploring what the price elasticity of demand is all about, what does it imply, and how it is measured. Finally, we differentiated between the different degrees of price elasticity of demand. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the rest of the chapter by first discussing the different factors that affect the price elasticity of demand for a certain good. Then we will turn to another type of elasticity of demand, which is income elasticity of demand that measures the responsiveness of demand to changes in income. Finally, we will end this chapter by analyzing cross elasticity of demand, which measures the responsiveness of demand for a certain good to a change in the price of a related good. So let's begin our lecture. In the previous lecture, we learned that the price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness or sensitivity of the quantity demanded for a certain good to a change in its price. Simply, the price elasticity of demand answers the question of how much the consumer would respond to a change in the price of the good. Is his responsiveness high or low? Which means when the price increases, that the consumer lowers his quantity demanded greatly or a little. Okay. We also learned that there are 5 degrees of price elasticity of demand that ranges from zero responsiveness to a very large and infinite responsiveness. In this respect, one might ask, what makes the consumer respond greatly or a little? Or more clearly, what factors might affect the price elasticity of demand? One important factor is the closeness of substitutes. Obviously, the elasticity of a consumer's demand increases as the number of substitutes increases, and also the greater the substitutes. But why? Because this enables consumers to find more alternatives and closer alternatives as the price of the good changes, and this makes his responsiveness greater. Therefore, the greater the number of substitutes and the more closer they are, the greater the elasticity. Equivalently, the demand for a good becomes more price elastic, the greater the number of substitutes and the closer they are. In this respect, it is important to note that the degree of substitutability depends on how narrowly or broadly we define a good. For example, smartphones as a broad definition for phones has no close substitutes, so its elasticity becomes lower. But what if we say an iPhone? An iPhone has a closer substitute such as Samsung. So we can say that the narrower the definition of a good, the higher the elasticity, while the broader the definition, the lower the elasticity. Okay, what else might affect the price elasticity of a certain good? A second important factor, that is the importance of the good for the consumer. Actually, the consumer becomes less responsive to changes in the price the more important the good is to him. For example, bread has lower elasticity than cars. More generally, demand for necessities tend to be inelastic, while demand for luxuries tend to be more price elastic. Okay, the proportion of income spent on the good is another important factor that affects the price elasticity of demand. As the amount of money you spend on a certain good constitutes a large percentage of your income, any change of this good's price will affect your purchasing power greatly, so your response to this price change will be greater. For example, consider the price of a molto relative to your pocket money and the price of a McDonald's meal. Obviously, your elasticity for a change in the price of molto would be lower than that for the price of McDonald's meal. Therefore, we can say that the greater the proportion of income spent on the good, the greater the elasticity. Or equivalently, the demand for a good that constitutes a large proportion of income is more price elastic, and vice versa. Is there still other factors? Yes, the time elapsed since the price change is one final factor in our discussion. Here we can say that the longer the time since the price of a good changes, the higher the elasticity. If the price of a good increases for a relatively long time, it permits you to change your consumption pattern and find other alternatives for this product. Therefore, your elasticity would be higher. Alternatively, if the price of a good increases for a small period of time, say for a couple of days, your elasticity would be lower. Therefore, the demand for a good becomes more price elastic as the longer the time elapsed since the price changes. Now, we have completed our discussion about the price elasticity of demand. Let's turn to another type of demand elasticity, which is income elasticity of demand. In Chapter 3, we learned that the consumer's income is one of the determinants of his demand for a certain good, and we studied the relationship between these two variables, the income and demand, or more precisely, the direction of this relationship. We said that a change in demand leads to a change in income leads to a change in demand. But in which direction? We said that this depends on the type of the good. That is, there is a direct relationship between the consumer's income and his demand for normal goods. As the income goes up, demand for normal goods goes up in the same direction. While there is an inverse relationship between the consumer's income and the demand for inferior goods. As the income goes up, the demand for inferior goods goes down in the opposite direction. Now, we need to analyze the magnitude of this relationship through the concept of elasticity. Or more precisely, we need to know by how much the consumer would change his demand when his income changes. In this respect, we can say that the income elasticity of demand refers to the responsiveness of demand to changes in income. And as we measured the price elasticity of demand as the percentage change in the quantity demanded of a good to the percentage change in its price, we can measure income elasticity of demand using the same reasoning, by dividing the percentage change in quantity demanded by the percentage change in income. Again, how we calculate the percentage change in income in quantity demanded? The percentage change in quantity demanded equals the new quantity minus the old quantity divided by the average of the two quantities. While the percentage change in income equals the new income or the new level of income minus the old level of income divided by the average of the two levels. In this respect, the income elasticity of demand can have a positive sign or a negative sign depending on the type of the good. A positive income elasticity of demand indicates that the good is normal, and if it is greater than 1, then the demand for the good is income elastic. But if it is less than 1 but greater than 0, this means that the demand for the good is income inelastic. Okay? While a negative income elasticity of demand indicates that the good is inferior. So let's take an example. Now, suppose that the consumer's income increased from $975 to $1,025. He consequently increases the quantity demanded of a certain good from 9 to 11 units. In this case, the income elasticity of demand equals the percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in income. How we measure the percentage change in quantity demanded? It is equal to the new quantity divided by the old quantity, Q. 2 equals, this is Q2, which is equal to 11, and 9 is Q1. Therefore, the percentage change in quantity demanded equals 11 minus 9 divided by the average 9 plus 11 divided by 2. We divide this term by the percentage change in income. Again, how we calculate the percentage change in income? It is the new level of income, which is I2. Here it is equal $1,025 minus the old level of income, which is equal to I1, which is equal to $975 divided by the average. Then 1025 minus 975 divided by 975 plus 1025 divided by 2. This is equal to 4. In this case, we can say that this good is a normal good and it is income elastic because it has a positive sign. It has a positive sign and it is greater than 1. Now, let's turn to the cross-elasticity of demand. Again, in Chapter 3, we discussed that the price of related goods in consumption is one of the determinants of demand for a certain good. We studied the direction of this relationship and we said that this direction depends on whether the two goods are substitutes, which are used instead of each other, or complements which are used with each other. We said that the demand for a good increases as the price of its substitute increases and vice versa, which reflects a direct relationship, while the demand for a good decreases as the price of its complement rises, and vice versa, which reflects an inverse relationship between them. Now, we want to know by how much the demand for a good would change when the price of a related good changes. To answer this question, we consider the cross-elasticity of demand. The cross-elasticity of demand refers to the responsiveness of demand for a good to changes in the price of a related good. Therefore, the cross-elasticity of demand for good X with respect to changes in the price of good Y is calculated by dividing the percentage change in the quantity demanded of good X divided by the percentage change in the price of good Y. Again, here we can calculate the percentage change in the quantity demanded of good X as Qx2 minus Qx1 divided by the average of the two quantities, the new quantity minus the old quantity divided by the average of the two quantities. We divide this term by the percentage change in the price of Y, which is the new price divided by minus the older price divided by the average of the two prices. Okay? But what about the sign of the cross-elasticity of demand? The sign could also be positive or negative. A positive cross-elasticity of demand indicates that the two goods are substitutes, while a negative cross-elasticity of demand means that the two goods are two complement goods. However, if the cross-elasticity of demand equals to 0, it means that the two goods are unrelated goods, meaning that the change in the price of one good does not affect the demand for the other good. In this respect, we should differentiate between the cross-elasticity of demand and the price elasticity of demand. The cross-elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded for good X to a change in the price of a related good, such as good Y, while the price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded for good X with respect to a change in its own price. For example, if the price of good Y increased from $1.5 to $2.5, consequently, the
quantity demanded for good X increased from 9 to 11 units. Then the cross elasticity of demand for good X with respect to the price of Y is equal to the percentage change in the quantity demanded of good X divided by the percentage change in the price of Y. The percentage change in the quantity demanded of X is calculated as the new quantity, which is equal to 11, minus the old quantity, which is equal to 9, divided by the average, 9 plus 11 divided by 2. We divided this term by the percentage change in the price of Y, which is equal to the new price, 2.5, minus the old price, which is equal to 1.5 divided by the average of the two prices, 1.5 plus 2.5 divided by 2. Here the cross elasticity of demand is equal to 0.4. Note here that the cross elasticity of demand has a positive sign, which means that the two goods are two substitute goods. This is a positive 0.4. Means that the two goods are two substitute goods. Note that the larger the cross elasticity of demand, the closer the substitute or complement the goods are. Now we have completed our discussion about elasticity. Thank you for listening. Wishing you the best of luck.